Hello, Podfan. Welcome to another episode of The Tea with Laura and Rachel. Today, we have a very special returning guest. She is a registered dietitian, a public health writer, and a powerful, sexy woman, Camille Martin. Welcome back to the show, Camille. What are you drinking
Oh my
today?
God. Thank you for that intro. That makes me feel so good. And I'm so excited to be back here with you guys.
We're so happy to have you back. We definitely emailed you pretty much right after we released the last one. And we were like, we need to get this on the books again because so much we can talk about.
Absolutely. And yeah, our last topic of our last conversation talking about dieting and why it doesn't work and weight loss, it is perfectly set up to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So I love that.
Exactly. This is just like a part two. You know, we broke down some of the body image that society sets out there for us. And now we're going one step further because we're going to talk about SEX today.
Love it.
Titillating. What a titillating topic. All right. But before we start, what drink do you have with you today?
I'm drinking my ubiquitous Hint water. It's a lightly flavored water. It's my favorite. So that's what I've got.
Excellent. And what do you have, Laura?
Well, we have lemon ginger ale today, and Rachel actually made the pot of tea because this is the first time we're going to be recording together.
It is. We are sharing a microphone, so we're really hoping that it comes out nicely.
Yeah, this is a test, so
hopefully we pass.
Hopefully we pass, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I can hear you just fine.
Excellent. All right, so let's jump into it with our first question, which is a biggie, and it is a bit of an extension from our last topic. And, you know, we kind of touched on this at the end of last episode we did with you, I think. But why are we as women programmed to feel ashamed of our sexuality?
Well, first of all, I believe that it starts with religion from way, way, way back, and not to bash anything about religion or faith or anything like that. But I need to do more research on this. But I have heard and read many times that the slut shaming and the, virgin, good girl, bad girl dynamic was created long time ago as a way to scare girls into not getting pregnant. So I think that's where it starts. But of course we have, it's come down the line, and now we have made it an art form to shame women for their sexuality, and the media images that we come into contact with on a daily, hourly basis, of course, just magnify that and make it so much worse. But the thing about sexuality, it's a really complicated, it's not a topic, it's a complicated concept, because I feel like what we've done is that we've made sexuality all about sex and just the physical aspect of sexuality, but it's so much more than that. So sexuality is your power, and not power over anyone, but it is your personal expression of connection, because that's the most powerful way to actually connect with another human being, is through your sexuality and having a sexual experience. But the problem is that because women have been taught to see their sexuality only through the physical, is that we miss out on this whole emotional, spiritual aspect of it, so that when you do have really a transcendent sexual experience with another human being, you know when it's happening, because it's not just physical and mechanical. It's about connecting deeply with another person. And that's still what I'm talking about now. It does encompass the physical aspect, obviously, because we're talking about the sexual experience itself. But back to my point of sexuality for anyone, but especially for women, it's a means of expressing your power, it's your confidence, it's your personal magnetism, and it's a way of just carrying yourself in the world. But the problem is that now we see the word, quote unquote, sexuality as having only to do with the physical. So there's a huge disconnect for women. And worst of all, I mean, I'm just going off on a tangent now. I'm sure you have way more questions to get more specifically into this, but because we see sexuality as only physical, it is a double whammy for women, because we're so focused on perfecting our bodies that it's almost like we can't even connect in a physical sexual experience, because all we're doing is staring at ourselves and shaming our bodies and focused on what we look like instead of the connection with the other person.
That hit some chords,
Yes,
for
it did.
sure.
It did. And this kind of leads right into our next question, because as a
Yes.
society, young girls and women are pressured to be sexy and sexual, because in that, high school, university scene, being a virgin isn't quote unquote cool. Like the cool kids are all having sex. That's kind of what we're
Right.
made to believe in movies and in the media. However, society will also punish the woman
Mm-hmm.
as giving it away for free or being too easy, or a
Mhm.
slut, which it's not a term I like to use at all.
Ugh.
It's a double-edged sword, right? Because, they're just like, well, you told us to be like this. But
Mhm.
now I'm being, hands are being slapped because I did exactly what you said. And now I'm the bad girl.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So for these women who are feeling this pressure, because I feel like so many listeners out there, they're going through the struggle or they went through the struggle. What would you say to those young women, like your daughters? What would you say if
Oh.
they were feeling that pressure?
Well, yeah, and I do have two teenage daughters, 14, one is 12, almost 13, and we talk about this a lot actually, but this
Mhm.
whole concept of good girl, bad girl, like I said, does not exist. We're buying into it because we've been brainwashed to believe that it is true. So first is what's really happening in that dynamic is that again, we're seeing our sexuality through the lens of someone else. Like it's what we are giving to someone else or withholding from someone else. And it's almost like we're missing from the equation. And there's nothing to give away. Like virginity, this whole concept of virginity is such bullshit. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't even exist unless you are buying into it. But yeah, we are trained by culture to, it's like a very fine line. And if you cross it, you're fucked. Sorry. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
No, you're exactly right.
to bring the word into the conversation that we're having. But really, your little girls are trained to look sexy, to act
Mhm.
sexy, to get a man.
Mhm.
It's you're doing all of these things to get the attention of someone else, not because you feel this way. And that just creates
Mhm.
more body shame. But then if you take it too far, like you dress a little too sexy or what some people might perceive as inappropriate. And then that invites the whole conversation of, well, she asked for it. She got raped. Well, she shouldn't have been dressing like that. Why was she out late at night?
Mhm.
But then, yeah, if you take it too far, you're slut shamed. And all of these things that we're buying into are all bullshit. They don't even exist. And they
Mhm.
exist only in a culture that is patriarchal in nature. It's because these concepts benefit men. I love
Mhm.
men. I'm not bashing anyone. They're just as much victims of this whole concept and cultural
Yes.
brainwashing as we are. But for women to be trained to look sexy, act sexy, it's not about them. It's about what other people are perceiving and how it gives them pleasure, and not the women, not the girls. And then the
Mhm.
tragedy of all tragedies is when a young girl does what society tells her to. She looks in the magazines and she sees, oh, I'm supposed to have, my boobs are supposed to be this. And it's not even just like my boobs are supposed to be big and I'm supposed to be cellulite free. There are like very, very specific
Yeah.
things that we are supposed to measure up to that are just virtually impossible. But even if you do manage to do all of that, and then you have more than one sexual partner or two or three or whatever, all of a sudden, here's another way now to keep her down and shame
Mhm.
her. And the problem with slut shaming is that once you have done that to a young girl, she feels like she just got flushed down the toilet and there's no coming back.
Mhm.
If someone calls you a slut, that's it. You're branded. And we're buying into all of this and we need to put a stop to it, and dieting and the whole dieting culture is feeding all into this because we're so focused on our bodies and how they are viewed by men.
Yeah, and I kind of want to touch on that really quickly. So we listened to a great podcast, Drama Queens. It's by the female cast members of One Tree Hill, which is, so our listeners
Oh,
know, Rachel and
cool.
I love that show.
Sophia Bush. Is
And
that Sophia Bush?
yeah, that's Sophia
Yeah,
Bush.
yeah,
She
yeah.
is the most amazing activist out there. They all are. Hillary Burton and
Love her.
Bethany Joy Lenz, like they're just amazing women. And I love because that show, there are some situations that are very questionable.
Yeah.
And I love now hearing their adult view from it, because they're bringing up these situations and they're just like, this was literally the producer and the writers like male fantasy. Like you could tell which episodes, like this was a male fantasy, because this is very high level stuff that's impossible for a child to process.
Yeah.
Characters are going through, right?
When they're supposed to be like 16 years old.
They're supposed to be 16 years old, and they're dealing with like pregnancy or like date rape drugs and all that kind of stuff, and being very sexualized. And the actors themselves, they were just like, we felt extremely uncomfortable, but we were so young and inexperienced that we felt that we didn't have the voice for it.
We didn't have the voice. That's part of it. We didn't have a voice.
Yeah, it was just like, well, we could replace you, no problem, right? Like you don't want to do the back of the car seat scene with no top on, like that's fine. We'll just get another actress to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's so
awful.
hard for these young women because they feel like they can't say no.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because you touched a bit on it as you were talking there about how, men are kind of fall victim to this as well in a different way. And, we're talking about young women here. So I noticed this a lot in college because I was in a sorority, and I know that's more of a thing in the States, so you probably know a bit more about it. But at the basis, they were Christian organizations when they started. And it was so funny because the rules that we, as the female version of these organizations, sex was shameful. You couldn't have boys in the sorority house. You couldn't party with the frat boys. Like you could get shut down if they found out about that. But on the other side, the fraternities, they were praised for like, how many sorority girls could you sleep with this year? Absolutely. Or like, you guys should be planning parties every weekend. Like there's problems where like they're like consciously inviting underage girls. There's an expectation that the fraternities would party with the sororities in school, but it's like, all right, but who are they supposed to be partying with when we are accosted for partying with them? So it doesn't make sense where they're like, young men should be having as much sex as possible. But it's like, but we're not allowed to be doing that. So like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
No, and like little boys are taught you should be, quote unquote masculine, and masculinity in our culture is taught as, yes, how many women can you sleep with, and how tough can you be, and how overly confident can you be. So it starts little boys are influenced by this. And then they're also taught that the girls that are sleeping with you and, first night, or she sleeps with another person and has multiple partners, those girls are bad and sluts, but seek them out first because then you'll get laid, but don't marry somebody like that. I mean, it is just, it's absolutely insane. And it makes me so angry because I grew up the same way as what you're saying, is in a sorority. And then of course everyone's getting drunk, and it's like, not everybody. I was, and it's like, you get
so was I understand.
And pass out, then that's, now we didn't have it back in the 80s, but now the date rape drugs, and then somebody's going to film you, and then there's going to be a gangbang, and they're going to put it on social media, and it is enraging. But to me, the most important thing about embracing your own sexuality is that, and we've sort of touched on it, but it's like your voice, like it's part of expressing yourself, so that when you focus only on your sexuality in a physical sense, and you're doing that to attract a man, what you're going to do is you're going to do the traditionally sexy thing, which is like, stand in a abnormally, constricted pose so that your body looks perfect. You're going to be demure and sweet and not stick up for yourself and not say no and go along. And all of that is disconnecting you from your power, which is your sexuality. So if you are embracing your sexuality, it's not just your body, it's also your voice. It's also when your sexuality is not just physical and it's emotional and mental and spiritual, you carry yourself differently through life. Your chest is like opened up, and you can speak louder and speak more clearly. You walk into the room and you meet people face to face with, make eye contact, and that is what really draws people to you, despite what you look like. And then that's how you end up with a partner who is like, God, I love this girl. She's like full of confidence. She loves herself. And then that's how you end up in a connecting, physically sexual experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that this part of the conversation is a great lead into our next question. Why is there a tendency for us as women to say that, they wish they had waited longer when they think back on their first time? Because, like, I know I would probably say that in a sense, like, my first time was kind of stolen from me, so I can't look at it the same way that some people can, but I would love to know what you have to say about this.
Yeah, well, I had the same experience. I was in a physically abusive relationship where I was physically assaulted by a boyfriend repeatedly. And every time after we had that experience, or I was assaulted, then he would take me somewhere to have sex with me. So that's extreme. So I learned very early on that sex was not pleasurable, that it was very disconnecting, and thinking to myself, please hurry up, let this be over. So that was very crazy, and most people don't have that experience. But I do think women wish that they had waited longer, because we're not connected to our sexual experiences because of the shame we feel about our bodies. And once you get older and you start to really truthfully get angry about all of this shit and say, this is crap, this is BS, I don't buy into this anymore, then you feel your confidence and your power. And then you have a sexual experience that is like transcendent, because you're coming at the experience with someone who is meeting you right where you are, and it's mutually connecting emotionally and spiritually, then physically. And when that happens, it's like, holy shit, I didn't know it was supposed to be like this. Like, this is what everyone talks about, and I never had this. So then you say, I wish I'd waited, because a lot of the sexual experiences that girls have, I know this is true for me, were completely disconnecting. It was me not being a full participant, me basically laying there waiting for it to be over, or even, worse, like pretending that you're enjoying it and then not enjoying it. And so when you look back on that, like, I think about my daughters who are just coming into their own sexuality, and I can see it, and it's so beautiful and so sweet and like innocent. I shouldn't have said that. That's like part of that whole BS paradigm. But they're so beautiful, and I can see them growing and changing. And what I want for them so much is to have that deeply connecting experience right off the bat. But that's not going to happen, because they're not going to be fully confident yet. So I think that's what people mean, is that I didn't have the confidence and the feeling. I didn't love myself like I do. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. And I think tying into that as well is, especially with the sexual education that at least we in Canada receive, and I'm sure it's the same problem in US schools, but, they don't really teach you about female pleasure in sexual education at schools, at least not when we were going through. It's like, I remember my first sex ed class was just like, all right, here's a banana. The condom goes on the banana. When sex is ending, it's the man ejaculates. That's it. And you're like,
there was no
okay.
You're supposed to orgasm as well.
Yes, nothing like that. They didn't even talk about like how a woman should know when she's even physically ready, because there are signals you need to look for. But it's just so interesting, because I think part of the problem is that when we're little kids, basically, like, I do think, as we're coming into teenage years, we are still children. But we're taught that, especially through movies, like young, kind of like teen oriented movies, at least when we were growing up, like, it's, how can I please the man in this instance? It's all about how to, get him to where he needs to go, but nothing about your participation in the matter. It's almost you're just an object as opposed to an active, willing participant. So
yes.
Like you
It's
want
so
him to
true.
think that you were great, right?
Yes.
Like that's the whole thing, right? You're like, oh, she was hot. She loved what I did. She seemed like she was having a good time. Like that's kind of expectation.
Or like, she's great in bed. But then again, when a guy says that about you to someone else, that's sort of like a demeaning thing in its own way. Like, yeah, she's hot. She's great in bed. She got me off, and y'all should, give it a try or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
You'll have
it's
a
not.
good time. Call this number. Like,
Well, I mean, it's not hard for a guy to enjoy it. Good Lord. I mean, how could you? I mean, it doesn't take that much. It's like, we're all
no,
good
it
at it,
really
right?
doesn't.
I mean, it's pretty simple, but like it's not about us. It's no one taught me growing up. Holy crap. I mean, I didn't learn one thing about sex except for at school. And it's just like what you were talking about. Basically, don't get pregnant,
Yes.
Yep, that
That
was
was
it.
it.
And I heard this great thing. I believe it was on the Empowered Women Rises podcast on their most recent episode. And it was that society is more concerned with the male pleasure than the female safety in terms of pregnancy. We have a lot of stuff going on right now in the media, and it's all about like, well, the men couldn't possibly take a birth control, or
Heaven forbid.
God forbid, a condom just restricts his pleasure. Where it's
Yes.
just like, oh, the woman might get pregnant, whatever, it's fine. Like, like there's no care for that. It's just thrown out the window.
The birth control pill might destroy her
up.
mental health, but it's fine because he's having a good time.
Oh, it's all about men. And then, we could have a whole other episode about porn and like how that's even more creating more disconnection between women and their bodies. It's just heartbreaking because it's I finally am in a relationship now at age 52, which sounds like ancient history. Like, oh my God, people in their 50s still do it. Well, yes, they do. And it is finally, now
it's
I know
probably the best we've ever had, right?
It is. I mean, it's like, because now I'm pissed. And like, so my boyfriend is like, I love you. Like, you're so awesome. But yeah, like, until you get to be, if you happen to find a partner that is like that, except for little boys are still being brainwashed too. They're watching porn now, which is just, oh my God, like that's what they're expecting their girlfriends to do. And how do you compete with that? It's all fake. If we actually had more, or I guess less psychotic, ultra conservative, puritanical views about sex in our culture, porn would not exist. Teen pregnancy would not exist. If we taught little girls and boys how to have safe sex, and that it's the most wonderful, deeply connecting personal experience you could ever have. I mean, you can create a whole person through that. All of this stuff would seem so foreign, like that's not even enjoyable. Like, why would I do that when I've got this with my beautiful woman, my girlfriend, who is, I don't know. It's just, and then we've got, teen pregnancy, and then we've got Roe versus Wade, and people are trying to turn it over, and you can't get an abortion. And it's like, people, if we took the religion out of it, everything would be fine. We would resolve like all of these problems overnight.
Mic drop. Mic drop, actually. All right. Next question that we have for you. And I think that we can apply this to any situation, whether it's like a young woman and it's your first time ever, or you're finding a new partner, or maybe like, because we're allowed to do that, maybe you meet somebody when you're out one night and you feel like you want to have a good time, which is totally fine. We can all go do that.
Yes.
How can a woman know that she is physically and emotionally ready for sex?
Wow, that is
a big question.
That's a big one. How do you know? Well, I mean, all I can really say is how you know. It's tough because you don't know what you don't know until you actually know it. So it's like you think you know, but then you look, I look back years before and I'm like, I mean, it's just makes me so sad. But like, I would say the best way to know is how do you feel in your own body? If you're,
Yeah.
like you said, at a bar and you see a cute guy and you're having a great conversation and you think, yeah, maybe I'd like to hook up with him. Hey, awesome. Protect yourself from an STD or pregnancy, whatever. And that's great. But like, if you're at the bar and you're feeling insecure and like you're just trying to validate yourself, or you're trying to, look hot to pick up a guy, I don't know. It's like, if you feel comfortable in your skin, and that's a tall order for women. But if you're feeling you inhabit your body, you inhabit your space, you feel totally relaxed and confident. And that's, as close as you can get to that, I would say then you're ready. But if you're out there just to give yourself some validation, or, you feel weak and insecure and you feel sad or you don't feel comfortable in your body, then you're probably not. But it's not black or white. Everyone feels all of these things sometimes. But in terms of having your very first sexual encounter, I tell my daughters all the time, like, I talk to them about, like, here's what sex is. Here's what it's supposed to be like in the ultimate experience. Porn is not that. I don't tell them, I don't hide from these topics and pretend like it's not happening. I talk to them and I say, here's why you should not watch porn. Not because, ooh, it's porn, don't watch it, but it's like, it's disconnecting. That's not what sex is supposed to be like. But at the same time, I tell them how to protect themselves if they're going to, but that when they feel like they are dating someone and that they are having all these feelings, these sexual feelings, and he wants, it's hard. They're in the heat of the moment. I say, before you get to that stage, you need to come and talk to me and let me explain some things to you that you may not be aware of. But it's just a conversation. So if you're talking about a woman in her 30s, how do you know you're ready? You just have to ask yourself the questions like, how do I feel about me? If you're talking about a teenage girl, that's a different story because
they don't know, just like you said,
they don't know. They don't know what they
have
don't
no
know.
idea. Yeah. And I kind of touch on my first time here. So I was about like 20 or 21, which is in society kind of considered old
Late,
to be having your first time. But for me, a lot of it was like, I kind of held back because I didn't feel confident in my body, because it was all like that not so much shame. I gotta choose my words carefully here. It was like, I want to know how I compare to that perfect woman. Do I make the cut? Is a man going to see me naked and be like, oh my God, you're so weird? So that was kind of a fear. And then it did take until I was like 20, 21 years old to be like, you know what? No, like, I feel very confident in my body.
That's amazing.
Now, with my first time, this was not someone who I loved or had a deep emotional connection, but I felt like, I'm like, you know what? No, I feel safe in this situation. I feel like that is a huge factor. I didn't feel like I was going to be taken advantage of. We were two consenting adults.
Right.
And like, I don't have any regrets, thank God, about that time.
That's great.
Because I was able to, wait, but I was so almost embarrassed for waiting because I was like probably the one person out of my friend group who hadn't had sex yet. But like, it's so hard because it's one thing or the other, right? Like, you regret doing it early or you regret doing it late. So
right. Am I too much of a virgin? Is it bad that I've slept with more than one person? Do I look fat? Do I have cellulite? Are my boobs big enough? Am I doing it the way he wants me to do it? How can you enjoy anything when all of these things are like, it's like we're performing,
Oh,
but that's wonderful that you had a good experience first.
Yeah. And it totally, it was not like this mind-blowing experience,
toe curling experience.
Yeah, like your first time. Absolutely not. But at least from that emotional standpoint, I didn't leave the situation regretting anything.
That's wonderful.
So I was I feel very grateful because I know I'm almost like an anomaly to have
that's a very unique experience.
Yeah. So like, it's just so hard for a woman to know that she is ready. So I guess my advice would be, for me, it was all about feeling confident in myself and knowing like, okay, I have this power within me, but still there was all that pressure of, this is what's expected of me. And and there were situations where like I could have had sex earlier, but I was just like, I don't feel safe in this situation. So I was like, okay, we're going to stop here. Like this.
Well, the fact that you chose and that that means that you are ready because you're weighing options. You're making it about you as it should be, like, what do I want out of this?
Exactly. So to women, like girls, like be selfish in this situation. I feel
Yes.
like a man is very selfish when it comes to sex.
Oh, hell yes, they are.
Yeah. So like, you know what, women, turn it around on them. Make it all about you because this is your experience. Yeah. And be selfish in it. Like if that doesn't situation feel right, even if you are already proceeding down that road, there is nothing stopping you from saying, nope, this is it. Because I did that many times where I was just like, okay, am I ready? Nope. Okay, nope. We're stopping here. This is the pants aren't coming off.
Yes.
And there's nothing. And you know what? Most of the men respected me for that. Like no one said like, get the fuck out of my bed. If you're not going to put out.
And it's like, I think what you're saying too is really important. It's not just about, like, we always say, no means no. And we tell girls, like, you can go as far as you want and then say no, and you can. But like what you're saying even if you weren't in a scenario where you felt threatened or like he was trying to push you into having sex, you can get all the way to the point where you're completely with no clothes on. And then it's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and I'm not down for this, and I'm just not into it. So you know what? I'm going to get dressed, and I'm going to go. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, like what? Yeah. Okay, I know there's a lot of situations, but like, oh, he's not going to call you again? Probably a good thing, Yeah. Like, don't take that on personally. If he doesn't call you because you didn't put out on the first date or third date or fifth date, doesn't matter what date it is. Right. Doesn't matter if you've known him forever or just met him.
Yeah, it's usually a bad sign.
Yeah, it's a bad sign. Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like women just need to be selfish in this situation and have no shame.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, my kind of perspective on this, and I might take it a bit more dark, a bit more sad, but I think that this is an important thing that needs to be said, especially for, young college-age women. So this was my first boyfriend, and I was 19? Yeah, I was 19 when I met him. Yeah. And, everything we ever did, it was consensual. But I remember the first time or the first few times, it was always I felt like I had to do it because I was either being kind of badgered because he would be like, well, my friend keeps saying, oh, why haven't you guys done it yet? That's so silly. And other times it was just kind of like, I felt like in order to fulfill my role as his girlfriend, especially, he was a tiny bit older than me, I had to do it.
Yeah.
And like it was fine, but what I'm trying to say here is like if you feel like you're only doing it because it's to keep your boyfriend around or he's not going to stick with you if you don't do it, you should probably end that relationship because I didn't, and it wasn't a good place to be. Like it wasn't bad, like he was never abusive or anything, but like there was a lot of very all or nothing behavior. Like if I wanted to just kiss for a night or something, I'd be like, I just want to do that, and he's like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah, you got me already going. We got
like
now.
It's like
no.
I'm already going, and it's hard for me to like not do that, and it's just kind of like, okay, but that's not really a fair thing to put on me. So I think where like versus when I met my current partner, like I was very assured, if anything, like I was probably more certain than he was, where I was just kind of like, all right, let's get going. And he was just like, maybe let's like wait a few more weeks. And I was just like, wait, what? You're telling me to wait? This is a first. But I think that's just, it's just the difference between, feeling like you have to play out a role for someone's happiness versus being like, I want to be here just as badly as you do. And that's something that I wish I knew when I was 19. So yeah.
I totally relate to that story. Both of y'all's stories, but like when your boyfriend was saying, I can't do that. And then my friends are saying this is, well, first of all, why are you talking about it to your friends? But second of all, that was the pressure of that. It was all about him and what he wanted. And you didn't matter. What you wanted, what you thought didn't matter. And and boys are also trained that once they get started, they can't stop. That's absolutely not true. There's all
Yeah,
these
I'm
just
calling bullshit because
stereotypes.
most guys have a left and a right hand. Like, you're fine. You can finish
You'll
yourself.
be okay.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
You don't
Go
need me.
home. Yeah, go home and take care of your business. I'll be here watching TV and having a lot more fun than
Yeah.
being forced into it. But it's just it's psychological pressure, it's physical pressure, emotional. Like, he was trying to shame you into doing it. That was a psychological and mental mind fuck. And it's like, there's so many things about it. I just want women to know that, like, your sexuality is not just about sex. Your sexuality is your personal power, your means of expressing yourself in the world. And the sooner you can own it, the better off that you'll be. The problem is, it's the chicken or the egg. It's like you're taught to feel so ashamed of your body by the media that it's almost like, how can you have a good sexual relationship when you're staring at yourself? But then it's like, you want to have a good sexual relationship and feel good about your body, but you can't have one because you're embarrassed of what you look like. So it's just it's just a cycle that you've got to break out of, and it's hard to do it.
So, as a woman who's now 30 and I've had a few partners, I think we need to kind of also address that stereotype where, like, when you find the right person, sex is just like perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be the first time or maybe your second time. I think we need to address that when you have that relationship and you feel really safe and feel like you can connect with someone on a deep level, it's a building process, right? To understand each other's bodies and wants and needs, and like you build up to this like beautiful connection, right? So,
and even sometimes once that connection has been beautifully built, you'll have a time where you're like, oh, that was all right.
Yeah, like it's not going to be fantastic like every time, but every time you should feel safe and just protected, right? Like, no matter what sexual situation that you are in.
Maybe it is a situationship.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be mind-blowing every single time, but I think the thing is that it's, no matter what happens with my boyfriend and me sexually, sometimes it is like this transcendent experience, but sometimes sometimes it's just like, or even the other night, I was like, I'm just so tired. And he's like, honey, that's fine. Like, it's not just about me, it's about you. Like, he's just so respectful, and he treats me like a queen, and not in the sense of like, it's all about me, but it's like, I feel the same way about him. Like, he has really changed my life. He feels the same way about me. And so sex can be all different kinds of experiences. Like, it could be a quickie. It could be like just completely raunchy and whatever, or it can just be sweet and intimate and loving, or it could be all of it all at the same time. And it's like, we're only taught as women that there's just one experience, and that is a guy gets on, he gets off, and he rolls off, and that's acceptable. And it's just not. It's not acceptable. Yeah.
There's just so much to it, and it's all about building that connection. So let's kind of move on a little bit more to those connections. What steps would you have for someone who is struggling to connect sexually with a new partner? They're in that relationship where they feel safe and they feel respected, but as we were just kind of saying, sex can be, you can fumble sometimes, right? Like, it's not always this magical connecting experience.
I guess there's two parts to that. Is it you're not feeling it because truly y'all are physically incompatible, and that does happen. Like, if you're really into a guy and then you kiss him for the first time and you're like, no, this is not.
No spark.
This isn't. Yeah,
can confirm.
No spark.
Can confirm.
Yeah. But if there is a spark, and then you're in the relationship and you're having a sexual, physical relationship, but it's not going the way you want it to go, I mean, that's when you can communicate about it and talk about it. And, it might be a deal breaker, like certain people are into certain things. And I'm not talking about tying people up and that kind of crap, but it's like certain people, want, he might want it all the time when he wants it, and that just doesn't work for you. Or you're not sexually compatible spark-wise, or it just dwindles. I don't know. There's just lots of pieces to that. So, if you meant like a brand new relationship, I think you just have to decide, if it's because you're not feeling comfortable in your own body, then things can change dramatically if you can just start to build your confidence in that area. But if you feel confident and you're with a guy and y'all like each other a lot and then you have sex and it sucks, hey, whatever, let's move on,
Yep. Yeah. And I feel like there's also nothing wrong, because I know, especially when I was kind of at the newer end of my relationship, we would tell each other, like, I really don't like when you do that.
Yeah.
Or like, I just prefer this. You have to talk about it, because I feel like sometimes sex is portrayed as the silent act, right? Like, you're just supposed to know what the other person wants, but like, you don't. So don't be afraid to use your voice and say, like, hey, you're doing that. It's just like, doesn't feel that great. Like, but if you did it this way, like, I think I would find it more enjoyable. Or like, I'm doing this to you. Is it okay? Do you like that? It's fine to talk during sex.
I love that you're saying this, because yes, it's so true. You talk about it. And I also think there's an element of women, like we were talking about before, that we are not taught how our pleasure factors into anything, or even how to experience pleasure on your own. Like, I mean, sorry, but like getting a vibrator is like, it's so important to know. We talk about these things like it's so disgusting and so, ooh, I can't believe you just said that. But it's like masturbation is a normal part of being human. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, we're shamed out of everything, for God's sake. But yeah, learn how to pleasure yourself, because that way you can show a guy who's clueless how to do it. And then maybe your relationship will improve dramatically,
Yeah. Like, I have no shame about grabbing a guy's hand and be like, nope, goes here. Do it this way, not this way.
Yes. Why should we be ashamed of these things?
Like, yeah, I'm so sick of like just being in a situation where like, okay, I'm just waiting, not really enjoying this, not into it. Like, I'm like, no, I want to be into it because I'm here too. So
that's right.
Don't be afraid to just take a bit of control. Most guys kind of find it hot. Like, if you're kind of talk to it from that point of view,
they
like,
want to know
like a woman who can be a boss. Yeah.
And I think this is an important part to say, like, we can't really read their minds and they can't read ours. Like, I definitely used to be like this a bit when I was younger, where like if it wasn't kind of going the way I wanted to, I would be like, why aren't you doing, like, in my head though, I was just like, I don't, it's not good. And I'm just like, well, obviously not, because you never said, can you keep doing this?
Yeah. Well, and even I'm gonna turn around on myself here, where like I have had my boyfriend say, like, you got to do it this way, like, and I had to be open to that criticism, because like, honestly, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was kind of thankful that he did say something, because I want him to enjoy himself just as much I want to enjoy it for myself, right? So like, it's that double standard where I think your partner needs to be open to not criticism, because it's not like you're trying to criticize them. You just want to be sharing that experience and make sure both parties are having a good time, right?
Exactly.
So I feel like we should also take it upon ourselves, just being like, hey, do you like when I do it this way? Is there a certain way that like you want it, right? I think it's important.
I think some women are also afraid to like do it the right way, like knowing that from a previous experience what does feel good for a man. They're afraid to do it like too much, because you don't want to look like you're super sexually experienced and then all of a sudden you're
true.
But yeah, if you're in a committed relationship with someone and you're learning together and doing all these things together and communicating, you're so right. Communication in a sexual relationship is so important. So yeah, totally.
Well, speaking of like long-term committed relationships, how can you keep the passion alive in those situations?
Well, I think it's just every day it's easy to get complacent, and like, let's face it, at the start of a relationship, everything is like new and exciting and you can't stop thinking about each other. And it doesn't dwindle. It changes in a wonderful way, that you become comfortable with this person. You're laughing, having fun, and you're not constantly, having sex all the time. But it's stuff like, thinking of that other person and letting them know, I thought about you today, or doing something special for that person. Like, if you see something when you're out and about shopping, picking something up for him or cooking dinner for each other. You do have to make an effort because it's so easy to just get in your, I mean, good Lord, I work from home. I'm in my jammies. It's like, I don't want to go to the store. Let's call DoorDash. You get so in your little world, and you can do that with your relationship too, if you're not careful. So I just think, and you try different stuff sexually. Why not? But it's just lots of little things that you can do. It doesn't just have to be sexual. It can be a romantic night. Oh, and just say, I want to just watch a movie tonight. Let's, cook dinner and watch a movie and just sit on the couch and snuggle like that. Touching, I think, is a huge part. I mean, I will say, I hope my daughters can't hear this, but when I was married to their dad, we literally did not hold hands for 17 years. We didn't kiss and like make out or anything. And it's so disconnecting. So by the end of our marriage, it was like strangers. And now my boyfriend and I, like, he holds my hand. And it's by physically touching, and even in a non-sexual way, that keeps you connected. So yeah.
Yeah. And I know like there's kind of the talk of like everyone has like a love language, and I'm not sure like, the whole research behind that, but for me, it's kind of words of affirmation. Like I like to be told like, oh, okay, like, this is how we're doing, and like let's talk about the future. Like that to me is like more romantic than if you like came up and started making it with me.
I love
like,
that. I love that.
I'll have tears in my eyes if you just tell me, oh, I just love you. Like I'm just kind of that kind of person.
I'm the same way.
I was in the car. Yeah. And I think as well, I know that this one's kind of like that's not like super sexy or romantic, but like there is something to be said, like as you've been in a relationship for longer and like you're getting busier and busier as you tend to do in life, just like having a scheduled date night does help a lot. Or even just kind of like if it's been a while, just being like, I want to do that tomorrow. And like it's an agreement between you that you're like, okay, we're going to do that. Because then it's like you're both making that conscious effort as opposed to just falling into the like, all right, I don't want to say like the roommate syndrome, but it is kind of that.
Yeah. But yeah, like what you just said, I think that it's making an effort. That's all you have to do. Even if it's a tiny effort, make an effort. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to some fun stuff here. Because we've already talked about how, young women are supposed to be sexy. However, as we get to a certain age, and we kind of touched on this in our last episode, older women are told not to be sexy. And I want to know, what do you say to that?
Oh, I say, fuck that. That is bullshit. And yes. Well, what's funny is I'm 52, and it's like, I remember when I was in my 20s, 52 was like, you might as well have been 82. It's like ancient history. But I have never felt more sexually attractive in my entire life because I'm comfortable in my body, and because I have a partner who sees me in all different kinds of ways and celebrates me. And women getting older and feeling like we're being thrown out with the trash because we have wrinkles and because we've had babies and our bodies don't look the same, it just devastates me. And your sexuality is your creative capacity and your confidence and your vibration that you're putting out in the world. So when women start to believe that we need to just hang it up and like, oh, well, it's that whole thing about sexuality being about what we look like. And it's so much more than that. It's so when we are believing, because of these cultural lies, that our skin is saggy, our boobs are sagging more. I mean, God almighty, like we are even more confident and beautiful as the years go on because we learn so much more about ourselves. And just to waste all of that beautiful energy from so many women who have so much to offer the world, it's just wrong. And I think it's wrong for women who have been in a marriage, like a 50-year marriage, 25-year marriage, to feel like that they're losing their value. And then you start acting smaller and more subservient. We need to blast women. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like sexuality and your voice and speaking out, not dieting, it's all deeply, deeply connected. So I say every year that goes by, you should let's throw away this mindset of I'm losing my value. Let's change it to Not just I'm not losing value, I'm gaining in value. I'm gaining in sexual energy, creative capacity, confidence, true beauty. And by the way, when you are fueling your body with fresh fruits and vegetables, number one, you don't have to worry about dieting, but that is going to come out through your skin, through your eyes. You're going to glow. You're going to feel good. And that is true beauty. You know, like you can give me a 20-year-old who feels horrible about herself, who's got implants and who's, you know, all of that, who has flawless skin. And then you give me a 50, 60-year-old woman who feels amazing about herself, who has some wrinkles, but whatever, and is glowing because she's on fire. That's beauty right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I love, because I love, you're part of this movement, you're spearheading it. And I am hearing that more as older women start speaking out about sex and their sexuality. They're like, this is my golden time, you know, like they're like, we didn't know what we were doing back in our 20s and 30s, but like at 40, 50, 60, they're like, we own this now. And I think that's hot. Like that is really hot for a woman to just come out.
Well, it's the best thing ever. But what's funny is that like I see young people, 20s and even 30s, and it happens all the time. Like, you know, a 25-year-old guy is like, yes, ma'am. And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, I am not ma'am.
Oh my God. If anyone calls me, like I get called ma'am sometimes and I'm like, really? Come on. You could have just.
I'm not ma'am. Well, you see yourself the same, but then other people see you in a different way, but it's just funny. Yeah. But I've never felt better about myself in my life. And every year that goes by, y'all, like what you're doing right now, like choosing to create this podcast to bring messages to women and to the world, that's beautiful, you know, and y'all are beautiful for doing it.
Oh, thank you. You know, and your voice is so important to be heard. But let's dive a little bit deeper into a woman who is feeling older. Like maybe she's in her 30s now and she's had a couple of kids and she really is struggling to own her sexuality. Like, what would you say to her? You know, what would you want to hear if you were going through this?
Well, if I was in my 30s and had babies, and that is the time where your body does change a lot when you have kids, and it can be such a beautiful thing if you embrace it. Like there's a lot of negative messages around, you know, you're a mom now and you're not sexual anymore, or going through menopause. There's a message out there because I'm in menopause, so now I'm paying attention to it, but it's like, menopause, it's so awful. And, you know, now we're all dried up and like, you know, closed for business. And it's like, what the fuck is this? What is this? This is so stupid. Like, let's just say no. So if I was in my 30s and I was having my children, yeah, it's just like you have to do things that make you feel good in your own body. And that doesn't just mean sexually, and it doesn't mean like jogging on the treadmill to lose weight. It means doing things for yourself, like it sounds so cliche, but sitting alone, having alone time, lighting a candle and like journaling, or just going for a walk with no agenda to lose weight or, you know, count steps. We don't take any time for ourselves. So if you're a young mom in her 30s, you literally have no time for yourself. It feels like you just have to take it and make it for yourself. And when you're taking that time, read books that support this new mindset, or journal, or, you know, get with some girlfriends. There's power in numbers. Like get with your girlfriends and instead of sitting around going, this is bullshit that are, you know, that we feel so old. Don't talk about that. Get with your girlfriends and talk about how are some ways that we are going to like bust all of this apart and really, you know, make ourselves collectively feel powerful. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. You just have to commit to it, you know?
Yeah. And you kind of just led right into our question here, because we were like, forget about the partner now. Like it's just you, and how women can be sexy for themselves. And you just kind of nailed it there. And I also want to throw on something that I've been seeing a lot lately is women doing boudoir shots just for themselves.
I kind of want to do that. It looks awesome.
I want to do that. I was, there's this girl and like, she just specializes in doing boudoir shots just for women.
Oh,
And
I need
this
to
makes
look
them
into
feel
this.
sexy, like, and it's not like they're
Yeah.
like not giving it to their lover, their husband, their boyfriend. They're like literally making these little picture books just for themselves. And it's not so much like looking back and being like, oh, look how hot I was, 20, 30 years ago. It's just like, I just felt so confident and I wanted to just keep
Yes.
this piece with me. And there was this story I heard that this lady, she's in her 80s, and she was in the grocery store, and the girl who does the boudoir shots saw her purse, and she had a photograph in her wallet of like a really sexy photo of herself when she was younger. And she's just like, oh my God, I love that photo. She's like, yep, that's just me. And I feel like that every day. So I keep it in my wallet to remember. And I was just like, amazing. Like at 80 years old, she had all these hot photos of herself. Like I want that for myself.
Amazing. There's also a class, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like where you can learn to pole dance.
Oh, I've done that. I did that. It's so much fun. It was for a bachelorette party. Awesome idea for a bachelorette party. And we all learned a routine, and we're in our heels and we're all wearing like leggings and little tank tops, and we learned a
Oh
whole
my God.
routine that we could dance together. So I just love this whole thing where like people are coming out with like, let's just be sexy for ourselves,
That's
Doesn't have to
right.
be for anyone else.
Absolutely. If you feel comfortable in your body, it's about doing those little things like just,
Exactly.
yeah, pole dancing, reminding yourself that you're beautiful with a photograph, or the boudoir shots, or, hey, again, I mean, get your vibrator, get one. If you don't have one, you need to get one so that you can know, and like, don't be ashamed of it. It's nothing shameful. And like, yeah.
Rachel's blushing.
I mean, we have recently discovered that there are some high quality ones on the Sephora website. If anyone is interested, I don't know how we wound up on that website, but I was on Sephora one day and I was just like, going through, and I was on like the tools, and it was like, like vibrators and tools. And I was just like, is that like something for your face? Because like those things exist. And I was on the phone with you at the time, and I was just like, no, this is just vibrator.
Good job, Sephora.
Good job, Sephora.
The worst part about it is that we're ashamed of it, which is crap. Yeah. The best part about it is that it teaches you to relax and know how to enjoy it, so that if you are having trouble in a sexual relationship, knowing how to pleasure yourself obviously helps, you show the guy what to do, but it's like you also have a new comfort in your body, and it's embracing your own sexuality. That's the missing link, is that we don't embrace it. We're ashamed of it. And
hey, you know what? As you get more confident, like both of you can have fun with that.
Like, yes, you can.
A man can learn how to use that on you. So,
oh yeah, trust me. My boyfriend knows how to use it, and God love him.
Yep. It's a new tool in the bag of tricks, right?
Yeah. That's always an interesting discussion, though. Because at first they're like, what? And then you're like, no, trust me.
Okay. Oh, man, this is going to be TMI. My boyfriend bought me one.
Oh, I love that for you.
Yes, he is a good man.
So did mine, actually.
I love it.
We went to
these progressive men.
Yes.
Yes. My boyfriend bought the ones we have, and he buys different ones. He's like, do you like this one better? I'm like, I like all of it. This is great.
It's all good. It's all good. Not picky, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, I love it. I love a good forward-thinking man who cares about your pleasure.
He cares about you. That's right.
Yeah.
I had a college roommate in my last year of school, and I had like just gotten out of a relationship at that time, and like I had never owned one, and I had a lot of hang-ups around it, whatever. And one day we're in like the mall in my school town, and she just starts walking a certain direction, and I'm like, where are you going? And she's like, come with me. And I was just like, oh no. And she takes me into like Spencer's, which is this weird, you know what Spencer's is, but it's this weird like,
I know.
She dragged me in there, and she's like standing there. She's like, all right, you're going to try this one. And I was just like, this is weird, but I appreciate that you care about me as a friend.
I was in a sexually barren relationship for 17 years, and I didn't know anything. And I am so glad that that's over. But yeah, and so speaking of Spencer's, like that is not your only option anymore. But like there are wonderful websites for women. It's like classy, like, it's not just classy. It's like, it's not slutty classy. It's just, this is what it is in here. And there's great websites where you can go buy something and they explain it, and there's no shame. Yeah.
No, there isn't. And honestly, we were talking about how crazy our lives can be, and stress and orgasms are like the best stress reliever, right? Like it's scientifically shown to lower your cortisol levels. So, we all need a little bit more sex in our life, and even if it's just with ourselves.
It does.
I'm just thinking about that store that we saw in the mall in Australia that was like half BDSM, half vibrators. And we were just, I don't remember what it was called, but we were like walking through and our faces were just like hot, like bright red.
Yeah, I do remember that store. Yeah, Australia has a lot of sex stores in their malls. It's amazing.
That's funny. Good for them.
Yeah, love it. I love it.
All right. So next question is one of our last ones. It's, do you have any resources that you would recommend to women about this topic? And I actually was wondering if you'd be able to give us some for women going through menopause as well, because this is a podcast episode that we both listened to recently on I Weigh by Jamila Jamil. And I think it's called, was it The Business of Birth Control? Is that what it's called?
The Business of Birth Control.
Yeah. And they were talking about how lots of women going through menopause, like, stay on the birth control pill to kind of regulate their hormones almost, because there's no information or guidance on how to work through your body going through that new type of cycle.
I feel terrible that I don't have anything right off the top of my head, and I need to investigate this more. I am literally just at the very beginning of menopause, so I haven't done a ton of research on it, but I will, and I'll let you guys know what I find out. I did recently read a book with a sort of shocking title, but it's by a woman named Gina Thomasschauer, and she calls herself Mama Gina. Her background was she was sexually abused and like having all these same issues that we talk about, was a mom, was married in an unfulfilling marriage. And so she just had this epiphany and decided that like, I'm not going to live like this anymore. And so she is now like Mama Gina to all these women. She's probably in her mid 60s, and she is all about like making yourself feel sexy and embracing your sexuality. And she wrote a book that I read, and it is amazing. And it's called, Pussy, a Reclamation. Yeah.
So that's a great title. Great title.
If anybody is interested in that. And when I picked it up, I was like, she's got to be probably some hippy dippy kind of a person. No, she's like, normal, like not normal, but like your mom, like she's, Anyway, she's awesome. So that's a great book if you want to like dive into these stigmatizing beliefs that we're all, trained to believe that are so wrong. But she is in her 60s, so she probably does have some really good advice about that time of your life. But I'm going to do research, and I will email you and let you know what I find out. I'm sorry I don't have more to add to that.
No, that is perfect. That is perfect, because it really is just not talked about at all. And
yeah,
I mean, women's sexual health is just so in the dark to begin with. And especially older women, it's just not even addressed. It's not even researched what is happening.
No, nobody cares about us. But that's going to change.
Good. It needs to change. And Camille, you also have your book, Love to Lose. So I feel like that is also a great resource, especially when it comes to women building confidence with their bodies and themselves, and your blog too, your spicy blog that you have on your website. That's essential reading material.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, the book is mostly about how to lose weight without dieting and changing your habits, but I do touch on some of these subjects in that book later on in the book about finding your voice and about the destructive messages that society gives women that need to be completely busted. But yeah, so if anyone's interested in that, I've got a proposal for a new book that is all about everything we just talked about, and I cannot wait. I'm trying to find a publisher for it, and if I can't find one, I'm just going to publish it myself again. But I will let you know when all that happens.
We'll have to have a book launch party for sure.
That would be so fun. We'll pass out vibrators. I'm just kidding.
There'll be little prizes. There'll be little prizes for everybody.
So where can our listeners find and follow you?
Yeah, my website is Camille Martin RD for Registered Dietitian.com. And I'm on Instagram. You can find all of my my social links at the bottom of my homepage, but I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. I'm just getting going on, which I'm starting to love, and LinkedIn, TikTok. I do have a TikTok account, and my kids are like just horrified by me. But yeah, you can find me there too.
Amazing. And if our listeners want to hear more from Camille, you can check out our first episode with her. And that is episode 47, Love Your Life, Lose the Weight, which was an amazing conversation. Every time we talk to you, Camille, it's just amazing.
Oh,
like we have
I feel the same way about y'all.
Love having you here. And I know we're going to get into a lot more spicy topics.
Yes, call me anytime. I love talking to you guys. Y'all are great hosts, and it's just so much fun. You let me know, and I'll be right here.
Definitely. So do you have any parting words for our listeners today?
Don't listen to any of these BS messages that the world's given you. You wake up every single day and you tell yourself, I am so magnificent and powerful and gorgeous inside and out, and no one's going to tell me any different.
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop again. I feel like my parting words would be, laugh during sex.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun.
And to remember that the most important thing is the feeling that you want to be there just as much as your partner does. And if you don't have to do anything.
That's right. Or find a new partner.
Ideally, find a new partner. Yeah.
I love it.
All righty. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and also a 5-star rating on Spotify. It really helps out the show, and we love to hear from you guys. And we will probably have Camille back like 30,000 times. So
live like tea.
Live like tea.